It was good, y'all. It's your boy JD6 here with my man. Shout out to KC Sports Authority. Make sure y'all go check that podcast out, man.
You heard the man. What's up, guys? Welcome into another episode of the KC Sports Authority podcast. I'm your host, Keegan Russell here. We got a fun one in store for you tonight. We've been looking forward to getting this guy on for quite a while now. Mr. Braiden Turner of the Ain't No Seats podcast, and probably one of the most recognized KU sports fans around the area right now. B-Turn, we are so pumped to have you on. Thanks for joining the podcast, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm glad to be on here, and I appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just talk. We're going to talk KU basketball, KU football, a little Chiefs, a little Royals. Want to start with, shout out to you guys, what you do at Ain't No Seats. Been a big fan for years.
Thank you.
Love the podcast. That's where, honestly, I drew a lot of the inspiration to start my own, was watching you guys. So it's fun to get on here and do this with you. I'm pretty pumped for it. So shout out to what you guys do over there. Obviously, you guys get a ton of support. It's been fun watching you guys over the years really take off. Go join a big network, branch back off, do your own thing. So it's just been fun to see what you guys are doing. So it's exciting. So let's talk some sports. I want to start with this. Where do you think this summer kind of ranks in recent memory as maybe the most anticipated summer of sports within the area, from KU basketball's big offseason with recruiting, KU football primed for what could be their best year since the Orange Bowl, the Chiefs coming off back-to-back Super Bowls and ready for a three-peat. And, of course, the Royals are in the middle of a potential playoff hunt. And that's just a couple of the teams going around. But where do you think this summer ranks for you so far?
Yeah, I mean, it has to be probably up near the very top, if not the absolute top, just because all those teams combined, I don't think have ever been amazing at once. Like, obviously, I thought 2015 right away, but KU football was still KU football. 2008, you go back there when both sports were good for KU. The Royals weren't very good. I'm trying to think.
The Chiefs were pretty garbage about that time too. They
Yeah,
were about to enter their 3-year phase of bad football.
Yeah, so in KU football, I mean, it's been 15, 16 years. They went on a crazy bad drought. So I think it probably is the most anticipated of my life. I mean, you have the Royals, who are a couple games out of a playoff spot, haven't made the playoffs in close to 10 years. The Chiefs obviously have won back-to-back Super Bowls. Mahomes has 3 rings. KU football should be ranked preseason, and certainly have my hopes up. They won 9 games last year, and then KU basketball will be maybe preseason number 1 again, which I don't know if we love that, but
I don't.
Doesn't bode well for us most years. I saw one poll today that had them at 3 with Houston as number 1.
I'll take that.
Which I don't know how Houston, considering what they're losing, would be ahead of KU and UConn, but that's
Houston lost Shed, and who else did they lose?
Cryer
Lever. Did he stay?
I might be wrong. I thought he put in that he was transferring. I could be wrong. But Shed's a big loss. Shed's a big loss for them.
Yeah. Kelvin's just a really good coach. So he's obviously one of the best coaches in the country. But yeah, KU football, I haven't been this excited for KU football since the Reesing days. Like last year, it kind of felt like you didn't want to get your hopes up too much because you've seen what you've seen since Reesing and Mangino left. But now my expectations are through the roof. And I think a lot of KU fans have a mindset to where the season might come down to one certain player staying healthy. So it's scary, but I'm super excited. And if they do stay healthy, they have a really, really good chance to win double-digit games.
Can we talk about that? Because we've seen on KU Twitter, I just recently there was this uptick of concern over Jalen Daniels, over the concern for his health. Is he actually healthy, and can he actually play the full season? Yeah, that remains to be seen. But what do you think? I mean, if gun to your head, if you had to say something. Is he healthy right now? Is he good to go week 1? Is he good to hopefully be our quarterback through the entire season? Because I don't think we have really many options if he's out. I mean, I think we're screwed. I think the chances of us going to a bowl game might be over if he's not healthy. But what are you seeing from your side? What do you think in your gut?
Yeah, I think he's healthy and ready to go. I don't know exactly how confident I feel on him playing the entire season. I guess he hasn't really shown us that he can do that. I don't know what it is. I don't know. Maybe he's fragile, or maybe just injury prone. So I'm not sure what's going on, but he obviously, when he plays, it's a completely different team. Even last year, he only played, I think it was Illinois, Nevada, and who was the Big 12 team he played against? Was it BYU? I think it was BYU.
I think so.
Those 3 games combined, he had 74 completion percentage. And he is obviously insanely good on his feet, can improvise, make things happen. And the exciting thing is every weapon is back on the offense. I mean, they lost offensive lineman Dom Pooney, but you have all your receivers back, all the running backs. You're laying Bryce Foster on the O-line. The O-line should be solid.
The best running back room in the country, I think.
Facts.
A lot, not just locally. We obviously feel that, but I think nationally they're starting to get a lot more recognition for that backfield.
Yeah, and they got a couple stud freshman running backs that just came in. Obviously, Hishaw Neal. So if he could stay healthy, I know they like Cole Ballard a lot. I know some people. I feel like they're not high on him just because of his stature. Like, he's a preferred freshman walk-on last year. But the staff still put us in good spots to win both games he played, which is wild. I mean, K-State won 9 games. We had them on the ropes. Hate talking about that game, but
one or two plays away from that game going the other direction.
Texas Tech game, you have, I think we ran like a halfback pass at the 1-yard line, and they hit a field goal the last second. So we had a chance to win those games. And then obviously Isaiah Marshall's a freshman. I don't know how ready he will be, but I guess those would be our options. I mean, if JD, even if he played 10 games in the regular season, I think that would be, I obviously want him to play the full season. I don't know what to expect, but I think our schedule is so favorable that if he were to miss for example, he misses at BYU or he misses at Arizona State, I think those are games where our staff, our coaching staff's so competent that we would have a great chance to still go in there and win those games. So obviously if he missed at K-State or he missed at West Virginia or he missed Iowa State, those are different, but our schedule really is super favorable. You avoid Arizona, Utah, Oklahoma State, a majority of the teams in the top half of the Big 12. So I really think if JD plays the full season, there's no reason they shouldn't win 10 plus games in the regular season. Sounds crazy, but I think we'll be favored in pretty much every game if JD is the starter besides at K-State. Trying to think what other games.
Yes, looking through that schedule there, outside the K-State game, the only one I could see just from a national media perspective is maybe KU Colorado, if Colorado is actually doing what a lot of the national attention thinks they can do.
If you use NCAA football video game ratings.
Yeah, then they're the better team. I find that to be very interesting. And of course, Shedeur Sanders, I've been going through different offseason lists, and most of them have JD as a top 10 returning quarterback in the country. A lot of them still, though, just have a lot of faith in Shedeur Sanders being the best, not just NFL prospect, but the best college football quarterback. I don't know if I really buy into the hype that he's that much better than JD. I think they are similar enough. I also think I trust KU's all-around weapons better than what Colorado has. And again, they're like where KU was 2 years ago, after 3 years ago, getting that Texas win and putting themselves on the map. I think they're going to be a good team, but I would take the consistency of what KU's offense has been the last few years. But yeah, if JD's healthy, we know the sky's the limit for this team. The schedule is very favorable to where we're getting there at the end of November. And not only are we talking about possible Big 12 championship aspirations down in Arlington, but the potential of sneaking into the college football playoff, especially with the expansion to the 12 teams now. No Texas, no Oklahoma. Don't want to speak too much into existence, but the possibility, I think I saw this today or yesterday, that a report came out that of all the Big 12 teams, even though KU's primarily picked to finish second or third or fourth, they have the highest percentage chance of making the college football playoff. And I think some of it's obviously the schedule you talked about, but it's exciting. Awesome. It's exciting being able to talk KU football as a potential, not just top 25 team in the country, but a team that could actually be there at the end of the season competing for something. I don't think we have any expectations that they would, go far into the playoff, but Lance Leipold and company are putting this team back on the map, truly building something special. Let me ask you this, though, that it's disappointing that all this is happening and we don't get to have a home stadium this year, knowing that the booth's going to get rebuilt and we're seeing a lot of fun things coming out, showing the progress there. But let's just talk about the games in Kansas City. I know you guys have talked about on the podcast too a little bit. Which atmosphere are you more excited about seeing? Is it the smaller environment closer to the field at Sporting, or is it seeing how many fans we can pack into Arrowhead and get the true tailgating experience going?
Yeah, it's a pretty good question because it's tough. The games at Sporting, they're not playing the greatest teams opponent-wise. You got, I think, Lindenwood and UNLV. But like you said, it'll be packed in. Arrowhead, you got a 70,000-seat stadium. I don't know how many seats we will fill. Like, I don't even know what to envision for these home games. I would think KU football fans are all the way bought in after last season and what we return. I think it's got to be Arrowhead. As cool as Sporting will be and how packed it'll be, Arrowhead's just Arrowhead. And like you said, the tailgating experience, I'm excited to see what that looks like from a KU fan standpoint, because obviously Chiefs fans are nuts, get there at 5 a.m. or whatever, and the parking lot's full, and you don't see a ton of tailgating experience in Lawrence. I mean, right outside the stadium, but at Arrowhead, it'll look really cool. And then there's going to be some fun opponents there, like
Iowa State.
That game terrifies me, like
because they're probably going to have the fan advantage.
They're going to travel really well, yeah.
And I might get shit for this, but I could see that being like a 60-40 crowd, or like their fans are just insane. You got to give, like, they take over the Big 12 tournament. It's their spring break. This will be a Saturday at Arrowhead. It's a couple, I don't know how long the drive is from Iowa, a couple hours. It's not really that tough.
Yeah, it's still a trip you could do if you had to.
And you can make a weekend out of it. So, and Campbell's obviously a good coach. That game will be a little scary. I think that'll be one of the more scary ones on the schedule. At West Virginia could be a sneaky one. Garrett Green's back. Neil Brown's probably coaching for his job. So, yeah, I'll say Arrowhead. And the opponents, I'm excited. I'm excited for Shader. That game will be fun. Colorado, I don't know exactly how many games they'll win, but I feel like they're a team every week that can sneak up on you because they're so talented. So that'll be a fun game no matter what. I mean, obviously Dion brings a lot of headlines.
Oh yeah, there'll be a ton of excitement off the field.
And yeah, like you said with JD and Shader, like I still feel like Jalen doesn't get the national recognition that he should. I know he doesn't play all the time. I guess basically I'm trying to say, like, I feel like the people around the country don't know exactly how good that dude is. Like, he is absolutely one of the best quarterbacks in the country when he's playing.
I don't think people know how good KU is as a whole. KU football. I mean, I just saw something this week on Twitter about how KU, like, I can't for the life of me remember who said it, but they were like, KU really hasn't done anything yet. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, back-to-back bowl seasons is not enough for you, but apparently it's not. Like, apparently you got to make the college football playoff, and then with the expanded format in the playoff, it's like there's always going to be people that say, well, you wouldn't have made it if if the playoffs were still just 4 teams. It's like, bro, what do we have to do? Win a natty for you to start taking us seriously? Like, I don't know. It's just really frustrating. As a KU fan, it's really, really frustrating.
And that's kind of the scary thing about the playoffs. Like Keegan said, you probably don't think they'll go deep if they get there.
Right.
So like if you get there and lose by, I'm not saying we will, but if you lose by like 3 touchdowns to a Georgia, are you going to get shit from the rival fan bases for getting blown out, or do you?
Oh, you will. Yeah, you'll still get it, especially from K-State fans. But I think you'd be perfectly happy just having a seat at the table, considering the way the program's been the last 12, 15 years.
And you hear KU in college football playoff, and people think it's crazy, but sports books have, I think, KU's third on the odds list to make the Big 12 title game.
Mm-hmm.
And if you make the Big 12 title game, you're in the playoff, I would assume. So we have as good a chance as anyone to make the Big 12 title game if JD's healthy. I think Utah has a great chance, K-State as well. But outside of them, I mean, I think we have the easiest or most forgiving schedule.
Yeah, you really do. I
just want to beat K-State. That's all I want. And it sucks that it's away. I'm so tired of them kicking our butts every year. It's like, dude, we're so much better.
Skated by last year. Got away with one.
I think if JD's healthy, I think we have a really good shot to be undefeated going into that game. I think it would be 7-0 or so. The West Virginia game will be tough, but our schedule before that, like our non-con, we should go 3-0 if we're healthy. At Illinois, who knows? But I think their win total is like 5.5.
Yeah.
And they're like near last to win the Big 12. So that's kind of how I look if teams are going to be good or not. I can't keep track of like depth charts and stuff. And then West Virginia, I'm not sure who else we play, but like
TCU's right after West Virginia. Then you got at Arizona State, which is interesting. New team to the Big 12. Don't know what to make of that game yet.
Because
it's a favorable schedule.
Our road games, besides, I think we're at BYU and at Arizona State, which is they're like
at Baylor to end the year.
They're both like 150 to 1 to win the Big 12. And like their win totals are like 3.5 or 4.5. So I know you can lose any game on the road, but if you're gonna ask for a schedule of certain road games, I'd definitely take those two.
Which is why this looks a lot like that Orange Bowl season, to where you didn't have to play Texas or Oklahoma to get to the Big 12 championship game and go to the Orange Bowl. So yeah, it's definitely setting up for that. I'm hoping by week 2, after week 2, Jalen puts up some big numbers at Illinois, because I'm not saying that game's going to be nationally televised, but it's a decent enough matchup to get some attention nationally. And if he has a big game nationally, then I think as you go into that third week at UNLV and then the fourth week at West Virginia, the national talk on Jalen Daniels will start to pick up. And I think some of this too is just because the national side hasn't seen him up close. They haven't seen a lot of him the last year. They have the memory of the Texas game a couple of years ago, but they haven't really seen a ton in the last year and a half with his injury concerns, that he's just not getting the attention. But one guy that is getting the attention, and I think rightfully so, especially with whatever potentially happens down at Oklahoma State with Ollie Gordon, that's, of course, resident native local Lawrence kid, Devin Neal, coming into his senior year. We talked with Devin a few weeks back in the summer about the hype he's got for his senior year. Not only can he break a lot of all-time records at KU, but he's also being recognized as a top 10 back in the country, a guy that could really put a statement this year as far as, potential Heisman conversation, potential best running back in the country, a guy that could really put KU on the map nationally with the way he plays. And I'm super pumped for what he's got. And my dog is super pumped over here barking for Devin's year. But what do you make of Devin coming back for his senior year and then pairing up with Highshaw, how they compare and stack up nationally?
Yeah, obviously super excited. He is electric, Lawrence kid. I mean, he easily could have went pro, especially with how long shelf lives are for running backs. So coming back an extra year, I guess, could hurt his draft stock. Like he could have been a year younger, but he's really back to just win. And that's the kind of person he is. He loves Lawrence. He loves KU. He could have went to a lot of schools throughout the country other than KU, and he chose to stay home when KU football was not very good. So he is an absolute legend. Gives me chills talking about it. Like he's like the way he's going to be remembered is crazy because we were so bad. Like we're the worst team in the country. He has no reason to stay home, no business staying home with the offers he had, and he does. And then he has the chance to go pro. and now he decides to come back for his senior year, and a lot of it has to do with winning, taking this program to the next level. He's an amazing running back. You guys watch him every week. He's super shifty. He is as good as anyone. And I guess it kind of shows you how good the backs are in the Big 12 because the preseason teams came out. You have Ollie Gordon, you have DJ Giddens, Taj Brooks, Harvey for UCF. Who else am I forgetting? Because that's been an argument too between KU and K-State fans is Devin Neal and DJ Giddens.
The kid from Arizona State. Skidabo?
Yeah. DJ Giddens and Devin Neal get compared all the time. And I see both sides of the argument, I guess. K-State just has big hogs up front every year. It's insane. I'm not taking any credit away from Giddens, but
yeah, it's easier to run when you've got those mammoths at the offensive line to run behind.
Yeah, but God, Devin's as good as anyone, and he can truly win you a game. You saw it 2 years ago against Oklahoma State when we clinched bowl eligibility. Jason Bean was a huge part of that. Obviously miss him this year too. But yeah, he is a joy to watch, and I'm so glad we get to watch him for one more year. I really want this team to stay healthy. And I guess that is kind of the downside to Arrowhead too, is these seniors not playing at home. This feels like this would be the year. The program's in great hands with the coaching staff, but after this year, you lose a lot of guys. So you lose JD, you lose Dev, you lose Highshaw, you lose all the receivers, you lose Kobe, Mello, maybe OJ, a lot of Marvin Grant.
That's everybody, man.
So I'm not scared about the future. I'm just feels like
Hey, K's coming off one of their best back-to-back recruiting classes too. So they've got some stuff coming in the pipeline. And they've been hitting the transfer portal hard pretty well too.
Yeah, it feels like the year. I'm not sure if Arrowhead or being away from Lawrence will have an impact on it, but I do wish these players could play in Lawrence.
I think
Devin talked about that.
Yeah, I think the only question I have with that is how willing will be between the Chiefs and KU be at transporting fans to the stadium and getting people there, especially the students. I know we've talked about for the last couple of years on all sorts of podcasts around the area is how do you keep the student section entertained longer than 2 quarters or make it through halftime and most of the third quarter. And I don't think really anybody has the answer because that's just kind of always what it's been. It's all right, we'll catch the game and then go back to the houses and party. So that's my worry, not that you need the student section necessarily to sustain the environment of the crowd because plenty of people can still get hyped up that aren't in the student section. I think we saw that this last year, but that would be my concern is how many fans are going to get out there? How many people in Lawrence are going to go, hey, it's not worth the hassle of going through traffic to get to Kansas City. I know they've talked about buses from Lawrence to the stadium, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of opportunities to do that. So hopefully KU kind of goes out and does what they can to get as many people there. I think the other thing I'll be concerned about too as we start seeing ticket prices is how expensive is it going to be to get into Arrowhead, whether it's nosebleed seats or closer seats because they don't think they'll fill up the stadium. Is it going to be affordable for fans to go? Because the Chiefs will be able to control a lot of that pricing since it's their venue and all that. So I think those are the two things that worry me the most from a fan perspective. But I think the excitement's going to be there. You're telling me at least one of those Chiefs environment games, they're going to have some spectators in the crowd that are some potential Chiefs players watching down that game. So I think they'll have a lot of fun marketing things going on to get you hyped up for it.
I'm part of that actually. I'm working with KU. They're going to be doing some advertising with me and with KMBC Channel 9, and some of our resources to advertise for getting people to that game. I believe they told me trade value because we can run commercials just for free tickets that we can give away as a contest. I think the lower level at Arrowhead, if I remember correctly, was about $400 a seat, and I think they're pricing that same price for every game, all 4 of the games. And that's a pretty penny, but it's also a good seat. So. I would pay that. I would pay that to go watch the Iowa State game. That's gonna be
that's the
gonna be
moneymaker
blockbuster.
game right there for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
But I know B-Turn, you're always working behind the scenes with your vast reach of networks to get fans there. What are some things you guys are working on behind the scenes, whether it's you or through Ain't No Seats, as far as trying to get fans to the ballpark this year?
Yeah, it's definitely something I think about all the time because, like I said, this is the year, and KU fans need to support this team and this coaching staff. Want to keep them around as long as possible. So, I mean, I'm sure KU is going to be running tailgates, but I was wanting to run tailgates at the game, and I don't know, maybe charge people for drink and food, and maybe it goes towards the players like NIL or something. So maybe that could get people to come. I know like the Lawrence KC thing, like a lot of my friends, when the games were in Lawrence, they would always be like turned off by having to drive 45 minutes to Lawrence, get hammered at the game, and then have to find a way to get back 45 minutes. So they always, and especially 11 a.m. kickoffs.
Yeah.
That means getting up at like 6. So I'm hoping like our big fan base in Kansas City, close to Arrowhead, where you could maybe, because like an Uber to Lawrence from KC would be what?
That's
$100?
expensive.
Yeah. Maybe
probably.
they can, maybe they'll be more willing to Uber, or, I mean, I've said I'll pick people up in buses. I know KU is already working on that. So I feel like there shouldn't be any excuses from KU fans. I mean, the program, they've shown enough the last few years. Arrowhead's one of the most, I guess, historic stadiums in the world.
It is.
So, and you get to tailgate. I feel like there's no excuses. I hope you guys agree, but
Yeah,
totally.
Last year, like the BYU game, where it's a 3-point game at half, and our students left the student section, and it didn't really make sense to me, because it's like, if you're going to go to the game and fill it up, why would you leave during a really good close game? Like a blowout.
Yeah, that's never made sense. I've always been the one. I don't care what the score is. You pay for a ticket, you stay until the final whistle, until that game's over, because you just never know what you might miss or get to see firsthand that you don't get to experience. Like how many? I mean, JB, we talked about this. Oh,
this is
I don't know if it was
basketball related.
Basketball, yeah. I don't know if it was last year or 2 years ago. We talked about, bad game. You guys leave. You shut off because you're disappointed, frustrated, and then what happens? Massive. Well, I guess you're talking about the national championship specifically, right?
No.
What was the game?
I'm such a terrible fan. Okay, I'm a terrible fan. I've left the 2 most significant games that I've left were watching the national championship in Allen Fieldhouse, like on the big screen in Allen Fieldhouse. I left at halftime. We all know what happened in the national championship in 2022.
Juwan Harris locked down the second.
I drove all the way back to Kansas City, and I caught the final minute on. I didn't look at the score at all. I was with my wife. We drove back. She was like checking the score on her phone, but I was like, I don't want to hear it. We drove in complete silence for like 50 minutes back to KC. We turn on the game. There's like 1 minute left. I see that we actually have a chance at winning, and we're like doing really great. We watched us win on TV, and I turned to her and I'm like, we gotta drive back. So I drove back to Lawrence with her, and we ended up partying on Mass Street, but we kind of got there a little late, and it was worth it, but it was like definitely not worth it to leave the game. It was worth it to go back and party, but not to leave the game. The other time was when we were historically down 14 against West Virginia with 2:45 left on the clock. Oh my gosh. I left the game. I thought it was over. Who comes back from 14 down with 2:45 left on the clock? But I get KU. That's the answer, because
in that building
we are.
So you're proving my point right there. You got to stay for the entire game, even 100%. If you're up 5 touchdowns. It's still great to sit there for the entire game, see the backups come in and have them get some experience and process. You just never know what you're going to witness on the court. I mean, could you imagine if you were at that KU Oklahoma triple overtime game years back and you didn't get to witness Buddy Hield just be electric? that entire game, and somehow KU pulls off a victory. Or the KU Kentucky game that same year where they overflowed Allen Fieldhouse with close to 17,000 fans and everyone's spilling into the hall. Just you got to stay for the whole game. Now I know those are extreme scenarios because they're much better, bigger marquee matchups. But yeah, football is on the up and up. Fan base needs to turn out. The student section needs to turn out. Stay there for the whole game. You can party and still be at the game. It's a long weekend. It's a long day. There's plenty of time to still party after. So show up and show out. So that's all I got to say on football. Let's switch gears to the other anticipated team we have here in Lawrence. That's the men's basketball team. Coming off a very disappointing year, all things considered. You come in as the number 1 preseason ranked team. You have a lot of hype, landing probably the biggest, best transfer in the history of college basketball with Hunter Dickinson. The season starts off great. Kevin Mccullar is an All-American, Player of the Year candidate. Hunter Dickinson's playing out of his mind, and then everything unravels. We get to in the year, the whole Kevin Mccullar situation, all that. But coming into this offseason, Bill Self has really locked in and has gone, full scorch the last 2 off seasons in the transfer portal. Big time recruiting class coming in. Not just the 2 big freshmen that I think are going to be outstanding when it's all said and done, but you get AJ Storr, Rylan Griffin. You got guys that know how to win, know how to score. Take me through this offseason for you, B. Turner. What do you think of the offseason so far? Where does it rank for you as far as best, I guess, anticipated hype coming into the year before we get into actual basketball season?
Yeah, I think I feel crazy saying number 1 again, but I guess the transfer portal is fairly new. I know we had landing Remy a couple of years ago was huge, but that wasn't really a crazy transfer class. This transfer class is insanely good. I mean, and obviously we were excited about Nick Timberlake last year, but it's a different scenario. I mean, it was a guy that hadn't proved himself at the high level D1. Now you got AJ Storr, who's done it at 2 schools, Rylan Griffin, who started on a Final Four team. Zeke obviously played for a mid-major, but Zeke is different too because he's a local kid. He's going to love playing for KU, and he can get any shot he wants. He hit 90-plus threes two years in a row. So, I mean, no one on the team last year made half that many.
Yeah.
And I think I was talking about this the other night. Like, I think he might be the most important player on the team because we haven't had a bench for 2 seasons. Like, we need instant offense off the bench. I don't know. I'm assuming Zeke comes off the bench. I think Rylan and AJ Storr, KJ, Hunter, and DeJuan. But we need a guy that can come in and score. And when KJ gets rest too, I think you have opportunity to play 4 guards that can shoot around Hunter. Hunter's chilling in the paint. No one can double on him because you have a ton of shooters that you can't leave. But I think Zeke is just super important to this team because I think he can help. I don't want this to sound like a knock, but he can help DeJuan and KJ's minutes go down a little bit if he's good, which makes them both more effective. And it reminds me of 2022 where DeJuan wasn't playing as many minutes and he was more effective defensively as a passer. And then now, again, he's going to have 3 wings surrounding him or multiple wings surrounding him that can score and shoot, just like 22 with Oach, CB, J. Will. And then you had Dave, who was in the paint by himself, just like Hunter. So kind of similar teams, I guess. You don't really have as much star power or first-round talent, but I think Zeke's super important because he could play kind of a Remy role where you just come in and score it.
Instant offense kind of guy.
Score it at will. And you think our bench the last 2 years, I mean, 2 years ago, they were the 1 seed, but their bench was Joe Yesufu, Pettiford, Clements.
Your boy Cam Martin, JB.
Ernie, Ernest,
all the guys that transferred out.
Zuby, and then last year, I mean, there wasn't one guy, I don't think,
not consistently
off the bench that you could trust. Like Parker Braun would give solid minutes. You didn't expect much from him, but yeah, Timberlake was just. I mean, I don't even know how to describe his season. I'll just say not good.
It's just, I mean, we've talked about it before too. That season's so different if the Arterio Morris situation doesn't happen. I think the second that happened, all the pressure ticked up on Timberlake and Elmarko immediately, and obviously both of them underperformed. Elmarko had spots throughout the year, same with Timberlake, but just overall the fit just fell apart so poorly. You didn't have anyone to take DeJuan's minutes, and you could tell that DeJuan was not the better defender this year that he has been in the past, because he's playing 36, 37 minutes a night and having to do defense, distribute, and figure out how to space. And I mean, he looked to get his shot a little bit more this year too, but it was a struggle. I completely agree with you. I think Zeke, if he wasn't just a local kid, I mean, it's already exciting that he's going to be playing here for his hometown team. But if you take that aside, just his play style, I think he's just such a dynamic scorer that he's going to be able to stretch what this offense can do. I mean, I think Bill Self's got an incredibly versatile group now where he can go almost any different play style he wants. If he wants to go the traditional dump it down the big man with Hunter for 20 points a night, he's got that. If he wants to run the high-low with some more athleticism, it's not the typical high-low we've seen in the past, but he's got the guys that can do that. We can also be one of the best run and gun teams in the country and be out in transition and go to that small ball lineup. And if Flory really shows to be the athletic guy he can be, nothing against Hunter, but Hunter's slow. You take Hunter out for a few minutes, you go with your run and gun team, and next thing you know, KU's on a 12-3 run with your potential best player on the bench because you're able to spread the floor. So I think he's got a very versatile group, a lot of guys that can switch around defensively. I think the big question, though, is who the heck plays? Who gets what minutes? Who's the odd man out? We've been back and forth the last 2 weeks on our podcast talking about lineups and projections and minutes. And I think I agree with you there that the typical starting lineup is going to be what you said, with Zeke coming off the bench, Shaquille Moore right behind him, and then a combination of Flory, Rakese Passmore. I don't think Jamari is going to get much. I think he's a redshirt candidate unless things go poorly. And then Zach Clements, a big question mark. What is he going to be? Is he backup 5? Is he going to play more 4? Is KJ your primary backup 5? So I think there's a lot of questions there. But in my mind, those questions are better questions than where we were last offseason. I think he's got a good problem on his hand of he's got potentially eight guys that can start. It's just a matter of which play style do you want to see the most and which team's going to be the most effective. So that being said, give me either a 5-man lineup that you were super excited to potentially see this year, or the 5-man lineup that you think will be the best 5 guys on the court to win.
Both lineups might end up being the same, but fun lineups that I want to see would be DeJuan, Zeke, Rylan, AJ Storr, and Hunter. I mean, DeJuan's I'm not saying he's a lights out shooter, but he's a capable shooter. He's not a bad shooter, like some people think, just because people sag off. I think he's just hesitant and he's really unselfish. But all 4 of those guys can shoot. I know Hunter didn't finish the year shooting it exactly like he wanted to. He started out hot from deep and then for some reason couldn't make a free throw either. He missed like 26.
Oh my God.
I think by then he had all the pressure on him because Kevin was out.
BYU. Yeah. So
this year I don't think he'll have the same pressure because he's got a guy right next to him in AJ Storr who's like, hey, I'll go get 25 in the next 5 minutes if you want me to. And you got Rylan Griffin, who could just be a knockdown 3-point shooter from the corner. So maybe Hunter this year doesn't have the same type of pressure to where he can be more effective consistently, or at least more efficient.
I think like the flow of the offense with those 5 would look incredible. And I don't think the ball wouldn't stick. And like I said, you couldn't leave shooters if that lineup's on the floor. Hunter would have the paint to himself. He's 7'2", pretty solid touch for the most part. And then you have 4 guys on the perimeter that can shoot and crash the glass. I mean, I think AJ Storr will be good rebounder, give us extra possessions. I don't know. It's tough to not have KJ in the winning lineup. Like, I have no issues with KJ at all.
He's just the most awkward person on our, like, it's I hate using that word because it makes it sound like he's a bad player. He's not. He's one of our best players. He knows our system. And it's just the fact that he's the most awkward placement on the team. How do you play him? I mean, because he can play a few different positions, and he's got a skill set that's very specific. I love him in certain scenarios, but yeah, I'm right there with you.
I mean, everyone saw the pictures of the spacing last year when Juan, KJ, and Hunter are on the floor, and I guess the thing that scares me is it feels like those three are going to start again.
Yeah.
So the same problems still exist.
Yeah, that's why I feel like the minutes have to go down a little bit. I mean, you'd have those three, and then you'd probably have Griffin and Storr. How much of an upgrade or difference is that from Furhpy and Mccullar? Like,
not much.
Is it a downgrade? Is it even? Like Furhpy,
I think it's got to be at least even with potential for better because the play style now completely changes. Furhpy could not really do much off the dribble. He struggled in the off the dribble scenario. He was good in the corner threes, open jumpers, and transition game. But I think AJ Storr has a little bit different attack than what Mccullar has. Now, Mccullar definitely improved his game offensively, but you still had moments where you're like, all right, who's going to go get us a bucket? And I think AJ Storr is that guy that can go get a bucket when the offense isn't working. But yeah, if you've got those three guys that are still out there, but you've got a guy in AJ Storr who can go get a bucket and can maybe maneuver around to get Rylan Griffin off of a screen or a backdoor cut, maybe offensively the ceiling's a little bit higher. But yeah, that spacing's still a concern, and it's tough because KJ is going to play. Like everyone knows it's going to happen. Hunter's going to play, and I still think Hunter's insanely talented. But sometimes I go, what would our lineup look like if Hunter's not the starting five and KJ's the five? We lose a lot of size, but you've got a guy that's got some of the strongest heart on the court and the most physical player out there, and you've got these super athletic wings all around him that can stretch the floor. So as frustrating as it is to figure out the lineup, I think it's also going to be very favorable to Bill Self this season because he's going to be able to, I guess, pick matchups a little differently. Last year, you had no choice but to play Kevin or play KJ next to Hunter as much as possible. There was nothing else you could do that was really working, especially after Mccullar went out. This year, even though there's still some question marks of who can play the four, I think you've got some options of what your lineups could look like to alleviate some of that spacing issues. But yeah, KJ is going to play. I think I just go back to, I think for me, my two, not X factors, but the two guys I really want to see have a good impact are both those freshmen. I think Flory, even though he might not be as offensively polished, being very new to the game, he's not as big as Hunter, but he's got a high motor, high work ethic, freak athlete. He could be the rim runner guy you need. He can pop out and hit a jumper occasionally here and there. So what does his game look like? And can he really push KJ and Zach Clements to the point where you got to start bringing Flory off the bench for Hunter immediately? And that kind of shifts KJ to this kind of no man's land. I think we'll see games where Flory gets a lot more look, and then we'll see games where KJ gets the look more. But Flory's one I'm super pumped about. I don't think a lot of fans really know what his ceiling can be. I think he's similar to what Cheick Diallo and Joel Embiid were coming in, a guy that's shown flashes in high school of this uber talent, just is raw still. And if he can put the pieces together, I think he's going to be solid. But I'm a big fan of Flory. And then JB's heard me talk a ton about Riquise Passmore. I think he's getting majorly slept on.
He's got hops.
Again, another high motor freak athlete that can play defense, better shooter than I think he gets credit for. And I feel like he's going to be a guy that forces his way into minutes somewhere. But at the end of the day, we know Bill Self doesn't play more than 7-8 guys. So if you had to, put the clamps on, what's kind of your expectation on this rotation? Who's the odd man out? And maybe who's the guy coming off the bench that you think is primed to potentially take the most bench minutes?
Yeah,
outside of Zeke Mayo.
Yeah, so obviously we talked about the starting five. I guess you can flip-flop either Griffin or Zeke, however you want, at the 2 guard. So there's the 6. Obviously, Shaq Moore should get some run. I think guy that's played at the D1 level. We've needed a backup point guard for a little bit now. I think Juan might have gotten a little comfortable last season. I don't know. I mean, there was no one behind him, no one pushing him. I don't know.
Or anyone to spare him minutes either.
Yeah. But yeah, I envision Flory seeing some minutes. I mean, they got to have a backup big somewhere. I mean, whether it's 4 or 5, you got to, because Hunter's minutes could go down too, and he could be more effective. I mean, you saw UConn when they were running their when Klingon would come in for Sonogo a couple years ago, like those two would just come in and just both dominate. Played the perfect amount of minutes. Hurley was running perfect rotations. And I know the staff really loves Flory. I think he might be a little undersized. He's like 6'8".
Yeah.
Bill kept making jokes that he was 6'7". But he plays really hard.
Doesn't his TikTok say he's 6'10"?
Probably
Like,
with
I don't know
his
how
shoes
tall he is.
on. Yeah, he's probably 6'8". If you get him without shoes, he's probably 6'7 3/4. Just like Kevin measured 6'5 1/4 at the combine without shoes, but he's listed at 6'7 all year.
But yeah, I don't know if his height will really prevent him from being an effective rebounder, or it definitely won't affect how hard he plays. I mean, you've seen undersized guys throughout basketball be able to rebound. I mean, it's really about being smart, just reading the ball off shooters' hands, and just effort, really. So it sounds like he plays hard. Bill loves that. Guys that play hard usually see the floor for him. And then, yeah, it's so tough with me with freshmen. Just we've been burned a lot, I feel like, with freshmen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've heard, I mean, some people have said Rakis was one of the best shooters in that class. He plays hard, he defends. So I really would love to see him play. I don't see how Jamari's going to play. And then Zach, I don't know. I mean, the players hype him up.
Everyone hypes him up.
I don't see what he would do or what he would provide for this team that Flory couldn't.
Yeah, I agree. And it's also, I mean, it's Zach Clements. He has been on the team for years now. And it's like, how is he really going to change? I mean, I know players develop under Bill Self all the time. I get that. I'm not doubting that he can have a big jump. But with Zach, it scares me that he's getting this hype in the offseason and it might all be for nothing. I hope it's not. I really hope that he's the eighth guy. I think selfishly, I hope he's the eighth guy, because if he is, that means we can keep Rakis and we can keep Flory for another year after that, no matter what. Like I don't think they're going to want to transfer out because we lose so many guys going into the following season. So we're going to need everybody we can get that following season.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, let's use Zach while we have him, and if he's improving, then great, And we need that backup size, like you said. So selfishly, I hope Zach is the answer and that he's the number 8. But it's scary because we've seen him for a couple of years and he hasn't really done much. It's just a little unnerving.
I think he's one of those that he's positioned height-wise as a 5, but that's not really his best skill set. I mean, Coach Self has talked about in the offseason that he kind of sees Zach as a 4 with the potential to play the 3. He's just not quick enough yet. But the way his play style is that pick and pop kind of guy, not the back to the basket, back you down, spin move for a little baby hook jumper or something. So the fit is what I questioned. That whole 4-5 spot. I mean, obviously it's going to work itself out, and Bill Self's going to play who he trusts, and it's probably going to be the guys that are rebounding and playing defense, which is why I think the Shaq Moore pickup was huge. Him and Dewan could be the best lockdown duo in college basketball in the wing position. Could, I think, give us some flashbacks to Mario Chalmers and Russell Robinson, the way those two guys play defense together on the court. They're not the Frank Mason, Devonte Graham offensive duo, but they could be some lockdown defensive duos there. And just, a lot of the season's probably going to ride with AJ Storr and Hunter Dickinson. Those are going to be your 2 workhorses, but it is, on paper, a good feeling to see that this team should have some legitimate depth this year. We've talked about it for 3 or 4 years now that, hey, KU's got a deep team. KU's got a deep team. How is Bill Self going to sit 3 guys a game? And then season happens, things happen, and the rotation dwindles down to 7 or 8. But it feels like we have a legitimate chance this year of having 10 guys that could make an impact throughout the season. You feel bad for Marco, though, because this was a year that he probably could have had a chance to take the uptick. But I actually think him sitting out this year recovering might actually benefit him better in the long run. Not only will he get his body right, but there'll be no pressure on him when he comes back. Dewan won't be here, so he'll have the opportunity to step in right away and showcase what he's been working on this last year. And I think he'll have a full season to really develop his game without any on the court pressure from the fan base. Anybody that's saying, hey, you're not living up to the recruiting rank that you had next to your name. So you feel bad for him, but I also think it's going to be a good offseason for him and a good year sitting there. Man, JB, what else you got? Anything else basketball related?
Dude, can we talk Devonte Graham really quick?
Free agent.
Are you paying attention to this? Because if he doesn't sign, is there time for him to join Mass Street and join our TBT team?
Technically, there should be, because Marcus Garrett probably won't be. Even though Marcus Garrett's on the team, it might conflict with Summer League.
He's with the Hornets right now for the Summer League, right?
So that could impact his time. And I don't know, did they name a replacement for Ben McLemore yet?
I don't think so. But my thing is, I'm looking at this roster and I'm looking at Frank Mason, and we could reunite Frank Mason with Devonte Graham for Mass Street TBT. I'm just saying, it's out there.
I didn't really.
If that happens, what do you do? Are you bringing Are you bringing all of Lawrence to Wichita? Like, what are we doing? Yeah,
because those are like two of the most loved, and I think one of the most heartbreaking losses for our fans was just the Oregon game. Because whenever that team was going to lose, like whatever round they would have lost in, it would have sucked because it was Frank's senior year. Just those two together. Josh was one of the more, I guess, remembered one and dones too, because he played so hard and cared so much. So yeah, that I haven't really thought about that. I mean, maybe technically you could, if he's not technically on an NBA roster at the moment.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, because they won't put anybody that's on an official roster. Well, let me ask you this then: since he's a free agent now, have you gotten any insight from him? I know you've talked to him a handful of times over the years, but any indication on where you would like to see him go sign? Is there a team that you think he'd be a good fit for? I know he's kind of in an awkward stage of his career where I thought he had a really good fit going for him in Charlotte before they traded him, and then just the Pelicans, it just wasn't quite the right fit, and his game kind of changed. He gets the contract that he was deserving of, but then gets put into two different situations that just don't really need him. But is there a team out there you think he'd be a good fit on?
Yeah, I feel I'd have to think about it more. The Charlotte thing was crazy because he was having that crazy year, hitting big shots. He was in a 3-point contest. He was averaging 7 or so assists for them. Like, he was doing everything, and their fans were obsessed with him. And then they didn't really turn on him, but it just,
I think they picked Terry Rozier over him.
Yeah, like the franchise, but it felt like the fans also kind of turned on him a little bit. I mean, the next year he wasn't as good. And then, New Orleans, he thought he was going to play and thought he had a role. And then Jose Alvarado kind of took his role. I mean, Alvarado he plays really hard and defends. I don't know. I know he was pretty bummed out about that because obviously any player in the NBA is going to be excited for the playoffs. And then, so I don't really know what team, because he goes to San Antonio, who didn't win too many games this year, and he didn't play. He didn't see a ton of minutes. So we've seen the guy be able to shoot it with the best of them in the NBA. So I guess a team that needs shooters, I don't know. I guess it just shows you how good you have to be to actually see minutes in the league. Like, we all know how good Dite is, and that's a guy that has struggled with the last two franchises to really see legit minutes. And that dude could probably go to any court in the country and fuck anyone up. Like, he's unreal. He can shoot, he can dime, so I don't know. He hasn't said anything about where he might go. I don't think it's going to be back with the Spurs.
Yeah, he's officially been waived. I think he's got like another day or two until he passes through all the waivers. But Free agent. I think sometimes that puts the ball in your favor because you can kind of pick your destination, but you also have to have teams willing to take you on. But how about the two guys that just got drafted into the league? What do you think of the Furhpy fit with the Pacers and then Kevin, getting traded to the Knicks?
Yeah, I am very excited about Furhpy. I have a little soft spot in my heart for the Pacers. Just got to connect with them. That's where I wanted him to go. I didn't think it was possible. I thought he was locked in to be a first rounder. The Pacers didn't have a first round pick. And so that organization is so thrilled about that. Like they feel like they got a top 20 pick. I mean, they traded their first rounder for Siakam, so they didn't have a first round pick. A little bummed about that, I guess. Siakam's a really good player, so you'll take that. But they end up getting a really good player in Siakam, not having the first, and then they feel like they got a first rounder. Yeah. Top 20 guy in a class everyone thought was weak in the second round. So they are thrilled. Kev, trying to envision what his role might be with them. I feel like the Knicks are so stacked now.
The Villanova Knicks.
Yeah. I mean, you you already had a ton of scorers and a ton of wings, and then you add Mikal Bridges. So it'll be Brunson, DiVincenzo, Bridges, OG.
They got to still figure out what they do with Julius Randle,
and
Mitchell Robinson. But I love the pick there for Kevin because I think Tom Thibodeau is going to love him the way he plays defense. We talked about it on an episode last week that I kind of see Kevin being at least in practice, maybe playing the Josh Hart type role. Just I'm going to be the scrappy guy that's going to give you a bunch of fit. I'm going to go get boards. I'm going to play hard defense, take my shot when it's there. So I think Tibbs is going to love him. I don't know how much playing time he'll get or run time. He might not even be on the active roster most nights, but I think he's a guy that they could kind of mold into the 3-and-D guy that Josh Hart's kind of been for him. So I think Tibbs is going to absolutely love Mccullar.
Yeah, and he's obviously experienced. He's a little older, so he might be ready to step in right away. I'm trying to think who really comes off their bench. But I mean,
they also picked up Tyler Kolek that they're pretty high on too.
Yeah, so he'll probably be maybe the backup point guard. I know they got Deuce McBride too.
Mm-hmm. The Knicks are honestly pretty stacked.
Yeah,
I mean, it's got to play out on the court, but they've got some serious depth. To everyone in the East, 76ers included, they're all trying to load up to be able to defend Boston, and the Knicks seem to be putting the recipe to work so far.
Yeah, and that definitely feels like those will be pretty intense practices with those group of guys, and Kevin just adds to that.
I do know another team I got to ask you about for sure, because your boy CB out there in Denver, nationally, the talk is that KCP leaving opens up a massive hole on the Nuggets. I think locally, and those of us that have paid attention to CB's game feel pretty confident he can step into that starting lineup and fulfill most of that role. But what's your thoughts there that with him with the Nuggets going into this next year, does he have a legitimate chance at securing that number 2 spot in the lineup and kind of filling that role? Or do you think the Nuggets still look to add some depth there to compete?
I personally think he's ready to step in and play a big role. And I think every time that dude checks in for the Nuggets, he makes a positive impact. Every single time he'll come in on either side of the ball. I mean, he can almost guard any, sounds crazy, but he can almost guard any player in the world. Like, he's guarded some of the most elite scorers in the league and at least made it difficult on them. Some guys, you can play the best defense in the world, they still score, but he'll make it difficult on you. I know that's kind of what they're losing in KCP, is a pretty lockdown defender. I think they're sad to see him go. Nuggets fans are too, but I think Christian can be like that too with a higher upside. I mean, he's super athletic, can knock down the occasional jumper, and he's just a winning player. Like, you guys know that. Everyone that's watched him knows that. He's legitimately won at every single level he's played at his entire life. Like, he won a national championship and an NBA title in a 2-year span.
Cool. Back-to-back years. That's hard to do.
And I was pretty shocked they lost to Minnesota. I mean, somehow lose the first 2 at home, and then. But yeah, I know Christian thinks he's ready. Like, that's the most confident person in the world. I don't know if you can meet a more confident person. So yeah, I'm sure if you asked him, I'm sure he'd tell you he should have started last year. Like, that's just the kind of guy he is. So if Mike Malone gives him that role, I think that's a guy who would just take full advantage of it. That's just kind of who he is.
100%.
Yeah, now we're going to get Parker on the summer league team. He's going to fight his way onto the roster, and we're going to have both of them in Denver. How about that?
That is pretty cool that they did.
It is
slim chance, but still.
Hey, maybe
I heard he's
they
going to start
put him on
over
their,
Joker.
Yeah, there you go. Put him on the G League team, and CB can go down there to practice from time to time and give him crap for it. But okay, let's wrap up with our final segment. You know, we've been doing some KU basketball trivia the last few episodes, so I'm going to test a little bit of your knowledge, see what you got. We'll do a couple here. No pressure. JB and Spencer have struggled the last few times we've done this, so we'll see. Let's go to what year did Allen Fieldhouse open?
I don't know either, bro. I don't know.
I feel like because they probably had anniversaries and stuff for it.
There was a big one that had a while back that Jay Bills came down for, and you talked calling it the cathedral of college basketball and all that, the Mecca.
I remember that exactly.
I actually have a T-shirt that has.
I feel like I should know how many, at least like around how many years it's been a building. God, I don't know the answer.
1955.
Oh, I was gonna say 68.
I was gonna say
way off.
There was a 50 or 60 year anniversary?
Yeah, the 60-year one was with I think that was the one that Bills came down for.
What year did you say?
1955.
So it was like right after Wilt?
Yeah,
no.
Yeah, he was
52
51 to 53.
What years did we won 88 and
52.
52. So Wilt wasn't.
Wilt
didn't win one, did he?
Yeah, he was on the 52 team. I think.
No, because Wilt somehow.
So he was 56, 57, 58.
Yeah.
He was on that 57 team that lost to North Carolina or Duke.
Yeah, UNC
Clyde Lavelle was the 52 team.
Yeah. So it was like, who was the coach? Who was the coach for
Fog Allen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, Wilt lost in like triple overtime to UNC. They scored like 2 points in each overtime because I'm pretty sure they were just dribbling it around for 4 minutes.
The shot clock era.
So Wilt couldn't get it, that's
the best game plan. Keep the ball out of his hands.
Cheap.
Just another natty we should have.
Yep. Do you guys know the first game that was played in Allen Fieldhouse and who the opponent was? It's a lot easier of an answer than you might think.
I feel like I've heard
Kentucky
this before.
K-State. First game at Allen Fieldhouse was K-State, a 77 to 66 victory over K-State. Okay, let's do this. Try and give me both. What season did KU have the most wins in program history, and what was their win total?
I will say 07-08 is one. 37.
That is the correct. Yep, that would be correct on both.
Okay.
Man, some of these we did already. Let's go to how many years, not including any NCAA strikes, because it still happened. That Final Four happened. How many years has Kansas been in the NCAA tournament?
I should know
this is the one you always got to throw a wild guess at, because it's not one you're just off the top of your head going, oh my gosh. It's a lot though.
Well, first off, how many is it in a row?
89 was the last one we missed, right?
Yep.
But do we factor in 2020?
I would say that would be non-existent. We'll just pretend that year never happened. So because I also include 2020 as not existing as far as impacting the streak that Kansas currently still has.
So it would be from 90 to the last tournament?
So yeah, right now, KU, if you don't include the 2018 Final Four run, and the 2020 tournament not happening, KU has been in 34 consecutive NCAA tournaments, which is the longest active record in college basketball.
We didn't make it in 2018.
Yeah, that's
Silvio.
I hate that.
And now
I hate that
6
so
years later, none of that stuff would impact the game now, which is dumb. But yeah, KU's been to 52 NCAA tournaments. Let's see. I got anything else on here? I don't want. Some of these are just really too far back. Most people don't get these. Let's see. We did some NBA stuff last time. Here we go. What pair of Kansas teammates who played together at Kansas have won an NBA championship together?
Wait, what?
There's a pair of former KU basketball teammates that played together at Kansas who also won an NBA championship together.
Oh.
I'm gonna have to. I think I'll have to think on this one for a sec. Jesus.
Not a lot of Jayhawks have won an NBA championship.
Is it the Twins? It's not the Twins, is it?
No, they haven't. I don't think either of them have won.
Marquise won with the Lakers.
Yeah, because LeBron's had Jayhawks. I'm trying to think of LeBron teams. Is it a LeBron team?
It is not. A certain KU legend, his teammate from an NBA perspective, had a long career, but nothing crazy. So he was a bench rotation piece at most on this team. I don't even think he played in the championship at all, but he was on the team.
KU legend. Like Pierce?
Paul Pierce, and
I'm trying to think who the teammate would be.
I'm out. I don't know. I couldn't name a single Paul Pierce teammate. Way before.
He's been in the news recently for some health issues.
Oh, Pollard. I was gonna say Pollard, but
Scott Pollard was on that Boston Celtics team.
I was thinking, well, they played together at KU. Those really good teams in the late 90s.
Yep, that 97 team, which is arguably one of the best teams in KU basketball history. And another question for you: there's a third teammate from that team who has also won an NBA championship with the San Antonio Spurs. Any guess on who that might be? Another legend. You wouldn't know it by his NBA career, though, or his NBA coaching career. Got fired recently.
I don't know why.
Jacques
Vaughn.
Yeah,
I said it right at the same
Oh,
time.
You were saying it was a KU player?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, KU. Yeah, he was also on that 97 team with Paul Pierce.
Oh, yeah.
But won an NBA championship with San Antonio Spurs.
Yeah, those teams were crazy. LaFrance, Pierce, Jacques.
Okay, last one, relatively easy one. There's only 2 former Kansas basketball players that have won an NBA MVP.
Embiid and Wilt?
Yeah.
That's too easy.
I kind of found that just a tad surprising that in the history of the NBA that Wilt won 4 of them, but even like a Clyde Lovellette never won one back in the day. JoJo White, great career, never got close. Paul Pierce never got close enough because he always had to compete with Kobe and LeBron. But yeah, that's all I got for questions. JB, anything else you got before we wrap it up and get out of here?
I just want to ask, you have to make a statement right now, yes or no. Do the Chiefs three-peat? Do we do it?
Yes. I feel, I mean, obviously health with football, but I mean, I feel really good about them at least coming out of the AFC. So that gives, obviously that puts you in the Super Bowl. And they've shown they can come back from any deficit.
That's right.
In any game, honestly, but all 3 Super Bowls they won, they were down 10 plus. Yeah. So I'm not really too high on the AFC this year. I feel like I think Buffalo's taken a step back.
Yep.
I don't know.
There's a lot of good teams, but a lot of those good teams, you still have big question marks.
Like the AFC North, all those teams are pretty good, but I'm not sure. like I don't really. It sounds crazy, and I feel like I'm a hater, but I don't like view the Ravens as a championship team. Like they're really good, and I like Lamar. I think he's a great player, but I can't see them actually winning a title. And maybe they eventually will. Like Harbaugh's a good coach, but I still think it could be. I don't know if Cincy's defense is good enough. I think they just scare me because
they're just a matchup.
they've given us
they've
given me terrible memories
all the time.
Obviously, the Texans could be.
The Texans are
not
going to be
really a
everyone's
surprise,
darling
but
team.
yeah.
CJ Stroud's going to get so much MVP talk. But yeah, I feel more confident winning this three-peat than I did going into last year repeating, especially with the way the season went for the most part.
Yeah, because like I was thinking about the Browns earlier. Like that's a really solid team, but like Deshaun Watson isn't the same guy anymore.
Nope.
The Steelers, they'll win 9 games somehow with Tomlin. They're not a championship contender. I don't think the Bengals defense is good enough. The Ravens,
can't trust
like I think the Bills got worse. Their defense is getting older. They lost Diggs. They lost Gabe Davis, who wasn't great all the time. But I don't know if I trust their receiving corps.
Indianapolis will be, I think, a rising favorite just because of young team. Brett Ballard. Let's talk about Indiana for a second. So the Pacers take Johnny Furhpy. The Colts, picked up Jason Bean in the offseason. We'll see if he gets to stick through the summer and make it onto at least their practice squad. But I think Indianapolis is going to be one with Anthony Richardson coming back that'll get a lot of love early.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's not a team this year that I look at, like even the Eagles last year. Roster was stacked, but the play style didn't fit. San Francisco is probably the only other team that I think is star-studded enough and plays a winning brand of football. That's the only team I would really worry about. But again, you don't have to potentially see them until the Super Bowl. Same with Detroit. Detroit's another team that's built, I think, the right way, but you don't have to worry about them in the AFC. The AFC side, I don't really fear any team other than the somewhat concerned when we play the Bengals just because of the matchup. They match up better against us than most teams.
Yeah, and no disrespect to Jared Goff, but you wouldn't catch me very scared going into a Super Bowl against Jared Goff. Like, I thought it was going to happen last year. I mean, it looked like it was. And then I'll give it to Dan Campbell. He sticks with his guns, but he does some pretty psychotic things.
Yeah, they blew that game. They should have had that game.
But I just wouldn't be scared. Like, their O-line's really good, and they got 2 good backs. Amon-Ra's really good. And he is a good coach. He's just ballsy. Yeah, but I think we've gotten to a point where really no one scares me. Like I don't even really get up for regular season games. Like I feel like they almost don't even matter.
Yeah, I had to catch myself last year during that stretch where we were just looking terrible. I had to pause myself and go, this game has no relevance on what happens in the postseason anyway. So cool the Jets. We suck right now. It's fine. We don't look like we're a championship team, but it'll come together.
I mean, the worst I've ever seen them was that Christmas game against the Raiders, and then a month later they go on the hardest run you could ever imagine, and they win the Super Bowl. Like in a month. Like Andy just cruises to 11, 12 wins in the regular season, not showing anything, thinking they suck, and then
Super Bowl. Insane.
Well, this is just what winning franchises do. How about last thing then? Anything on the Royal side? Any players out there in the trade market, or any moves you would like to see made that might put this team over the top?
Yeah, I was making a list the other night. I think it was before the Rays series, and then since then my hopes. I know we're right in it, but just the way I view the team has really changed. I feel like there's a lot of dead spots in the lineup. Mm. The rotation is amazing. So I flip-flop. Like I tell myself we can be in any game because our rotate, like most nights, these guys go 6-7 innings, give up a max of 3 earned.
Yeah.
But
it's still one of the best 3 rotations in baseball.
Oh, for sure. And I think Walk is only going to get better throughout the season. But the pen is just terrifying. and our farm system isn't very strong. So it's like, will you have enough prospects to give up at the deadline? And if you do you give up some of your best prospects for a bullpen arm that makes the bullpen a little better, but probably doesn't solve it? It feels like we need to trade for a player that's under control for a couple of years.
And I think
be a
this
part of the
morning
future.
On 610, they were talking about that this morning, and Josh Vernier had an interview with John Sherman, and Sherman didn't really say what the plan was, but he's basically like, if I had to pick, I'd rather call up a team that has a guy under club control and say, hey, we'll just pay you extra and we'll take on the salary and the contract and figure out how to acquire him that way instead of giving up pieces. Because he kind of said, he's like, yeah, our farm system's not the best right now, and what we do have, if we give it up, what does that do for us, not just this year, but 2025, 2026, 2027? So, at what point do we concede the future to potentially win now if we're not really at the high end of the race? So I don't know if there is. Yeah. I mean, Chris that does podcasts with me, we haven't really come up with a strong list of guys. It's probably gonna be guys that don't really move the needle much.
That's why, like, for a rental, for us to trade for rentals, like, I would need to feel like this team can actually win a championship. And I know, like, we've looked good against Cleveland and stuff like that, but I don't see them actually going on a playoff run. Like, it's one of those things where they would maybe sneak a wild card spot, maybe win a game or so, but it doesn't feel like it's the right time or right year to go all the way in. Yeah. Like, you're currently not even in a playoff spot. I think the schedule gets a little easier coming up, but yeah, it would be like, say we find a corner outfielder that's under control for 2-3 years. That would be freaking huge, because that's exactly what we need. I don't think MJ Melendez is the answer, and I don't think he'll be a part of the future, but I think you have a couple guys in the lineup that will be. I think Vinny and Bobby are good starts. Not a huge sample size from Michael Massey, but I think maybe he could be. Michael's really struggled lately. I'm not giving up on him. And then you have Reagans and Singer that are really young that can maybe be your 1 and 2 for a long time. We have Lugo for a couple years. So, yeah, if they could find a bat and or a bullpen arm that are under control for a couple of years, I would love that. But I don't think you give up prospects to get a guy that isn't going to re-sign with you in the off season, because I don't realistically think they can go on a title run. Like, the Yankees are probably, you got the Orioles.
Yankees and the Orioles are just on a whole nother planet. And then you got then once you get there, you got the Dodgers on the other side.
That's what, like, even, I mean, we're probably the third best team in our own division. Like, I don't know. I mean, it sounds terrible, but
I think we're still further along than most fans anticipate at this point. I think the hot start to May and early June got you excited that, man, we're right there. End of June, early July has been a struggle, but this team has been, if you go back to about 2014, 2015, the Royals have been one of the 5 best teams the second half of the season as far as win-loss record. So they clearly like to heat up when the summer heats up. So maybe they can rattle off a 9-1 stretch and be right back in it. Maybe Cleveland drops off. Cleveland's still, I think personally, playing above what they're capable of. Their rotation has been better than what it should be. I mean, one of their best pitchers is on the injured list, and their other best pitcher they already sent down to AAA. So they're still getting by with a strong bullpen, and you got to think those guys fizzle out at some point.
Yeah, they have to. I mean, they're asking too much out of the bullpen. Their rotation is solid, but not good enough without Bieber. I don't think they would have the horses in the playoffs either to do it. And they obviously have a couple studs in their lineup, but outside of them, like, their lineup doesn't really do it for me either. You obviously have Quan and Ramirez, but Josh Naylor's solid. David Fry or whatever is pretty good. Outside of those guys, like, their lineup doesn't blow me away.
Yeah, they don't have what New York and Baltimore have, where just 1 through 9 you look at and go, who do we pitch around?
Yeah, exactly. So you could pitch around Jose Ramirez in the playoffs. I I don't know. Like you said, though, the summer excitement, like most years right now, we'd just be begging for football season, which we still are, but we have something to watch every single night. And I actually care if they win or lose.
Yeah.
I would have expected, to probably finish with 85-ish losses, 90 losses. So being, 6 games above 500 feels pretty good. And hopefully there's a future. But, yeah, I don't think they should go all in at the deadline. And, depending on how this week and the next few weeks go, I don't know. Sounds crazy, but maybe you start thinking about trading yourselves. Like, it sounds stupid because you're in contention, but then, like you just said, they talked about how depleted and how weak the farm system is. And obviously prospects aren't a for sure thing, but I guess it comes down to how close do they think they are to actually competing for a title? And if not, like maybe you trade a guy like Seth Lugo, which sounds crazy.
He'd have a high asking price. Freddie Fermin would be getting calls. Even Salvi would still get a lot of phone calls. I could not accept a Salvador Perez trade. I don't care what I get back. It just feels wrong. But they've got some pieces that if they decide they want to sell high now, and if I think that's what's going to be hard for the fan base is, hey, we're finally competing and we're playing winning baseball a lot of the nights. So I think it'd be frustrating for the fans to go, all right, you really care about this team, but now you want to sell off our good pieces. So we're going to tune out the rest of the year because we're going to be bad the second half. But does that put us in a position going into the next year and the next couple of years to be consistent? Because it's great when you win, but if you win 1 year out of every 10 or 11 years, it's hard to be exciting about the team. But if you can consistently, even if you're not winning in the playoffs, like if you can just make the playoffs 3 out of every 6 years, you feel decent about your team. But I think that's going to be the uphill battle John Sherman's always going to have, just because until we either show we are willing to consistently spend the money every offseason to keep guys, we've clearly shown we're not capable at the high level of drafting and developing quickly like other teams. Yes, Bobby Witt instantly gets here, once in a lifetime kind of prospect, but all these other teams around the league seem to get their high prospects a year into their time up to the big leagues. And when our guys do get up here, they just don't have the look that you get. But I don't know, still an exciting summer. It's been a fun summer. A lot of great things going on in Kansas City. Sporting KC hasn't been solid, but Kansas City Current have been fantastic. I myself not a big soccer guy personally, but it's great to see another team in the area be excelling and driving up a fan base. You obviously got the stadium talks, driving excitement all summer long. Kansas getting in on the action with the Star Bond stuff. So there's a lot of stuff going around the state of Kansas and Missouri area. All of our local teams in good positions to have a solid rest of the season. But Braiden, appreciate you taking the time. It's not quite the 2 hours you guys sometimes go on your end. I don't know how you guys do that.
It's like almost a habit. Like it feels weird if we don't do it.
If we don't, yeah, I think there are times where I'm sitting here watching, going, all right, it's about that 45-minute mark. The chatter's dying out, and then next thing you know, it's another 45 minutes. You're going, how do we keep that going?
I don't really understand how we pull that off, but yeah, we haven't recorded in forever.
Yeah, it's been a while. Do you guys have anything coming up?
I think they want to record tomorrow night. I guess it's just tough in the off season with KU.
Yeah, because you guys still primarily are doing KU stuff. There's only so much to talk about. I'd
love to branch out and do some things, but I'm trying to find the right people. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough in the off season. You got transfer portal stuff you can talk about, I guess, but there's literally no sports going on.
You guys have already covered
Kansas. So I'm super excited for football season, which leads right into basketball, and should be pretty damn good at both.
Yeah. Well, hey, you guys are always. I've messaged Ryan before too about you guys are always welcome. I know you guys are definitely further along than we are in the process of building up our podcast, but we designed ours to where we don't have to limit to what we talk about. So if you guys ever want to do any cross content stuff, get into, I'm trying to do a lot more sports betting stuff going to football season and branch out of just the local stuff. So yeah, if you guys ever want to cross paths on something, let us know. We'd love to do some back and forth stuff. Did you guys ever put together your golf tournament you've talked about?
No, I want to do that. I'd love to plan it with
do a KU NIL.
Yeah. And I'd love to plan it with just some KU fans that could help out and could get some teams signed up. I really want to do, hopefully no one steals this idea. But
this is where we should hit the pause button and stop recording.
I really want to do a KU trivia night where fans from all around the country, wherever, come to KC or Lawrence. There's a bunch of tables, and I probably need help coming up with trivia questions, but I think
we'll have to talk about that offline. If you haven't, Derek, like I know I mentioned to you this before we started recording, Derek Johnson's doing a trivia night. He was doing trivia every year with Rock Chalk Sports Talk with Nick Schwert before Schwert left, and then Nick Springer. He's got one coming up here in July. I don't know if he still has any spots left for teams, but that is something he wants to continuously do.
Yeah.
This specific one's KU basketball, but KU football could totally be done. That's something I've been wanting to do too, is coming up with other ways that we're not just sitting here talking about sports. We're getting, the fans and the audience more involved. So yeah, totally could do some of that stuff down there, but we'll wrap up there. Don't want to steal any of your ideas in the podcast format. We can always talk about that offline, but Braiden, I always appreciate the time. Glad we were able to do this, and hopefully we can do some more stuff down the road.
Of course. I really appreciate you guys having me on, and I enjoy talking to you guys, and looking forward to doing stuff in the future, and hopefully celebrating some fun KU football and basketball victories this coming season and college football playoff appearance.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. Well, if you're still with us this far into it, thank you for tuning in, checking us out whenever you do. Of course, you can find our podcast over here on YouTube, where you can like and subscribe. Officially over 700 subscribers now, on our way to 1,000. And the guys over at Ain't No Seats are also getting close to 1,000. So if you haven't, I'm assuming a lot of our audience has already subscribed to you guys. If not, go check out Ain't No Seats. Again, one of my favorite podcasts. And hopefully we can get a little bit of your audience too to check us out sometime.
Yes.
You guys can also hit us up, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at KCSA Pod, and listen on Spotify. But that'll wrap it up for this one. As always, Rock Chalk, and we'll catch you guys in the next episode.
Rock Chalk.